First of all, thank you very much for this lovely introduction, and thank you for inviting me to present one of my favorite topics. Today I will talk about, as you can see, media and climate crisis. And but before I begin, allow me to briefly introduce myself. As Peter said, my name is Norman Schumann, and I studied mathematics and philosophy. I got my PhD in 2014 in the field of algebraic topology. But after that, I left university, and first I became a math teacher in school until I entered the private sector. Now my primary profession is I'm a data manager and data scientist at Westnetz. That's a power grid operator in Dortmund. And additionally, as Peter said, I work at the University of Hamburg in the field of communication science, and we're focusing on media analysis and measurement of media. And I conducted a study with the chair of Michael Brüggemann to analyze the presence of climate-related content in television programs and assess how much climate-related content actually appears in the current programming. Also, I'm one of the co-founders of the initiative Klima acht, which broadly speaking advocates for more climate reporting in German television. We'll come to that later. Before I dive into the topic, I'd like to start off with a brief note. Today is a special day as it marks the celebration of the Biodiversity Day. Despite numerous efforts, the alarming truth remains that alongside the climate crisis, we are also witnessing a global decline in biodiversity. Therefore, the 22nd of May serves as an annual reminder that it's absolutely crucial for us to do everything in our power to halt the destruction of nature. Let us now have an overview about today's content. The topics I will discuss today are structured as follows. First, we will talk about media and broadcasting companies in Germany. Then I will introduce the initiative Klima acht, Climate Before 8. I will explain later why before 8. Next, we will delve into data collected by our initiative as well as the University of Hamburg, and then we'll examine common problematic narratives and framing using examples. And finally, I would like to provide a brief outlook on what can be done to improve the situation. But first, I would like to talk about the climate crisis. I won't start from scratch, assuming that many of you are already aware of this issue. However, I want to emphasize once again that these problems didn't arise just yesterday, and not with the emergence of movements like Fridays for Future or Extinction Rebellion. Therefore, let's take a look at how long this problem has been brewing. So I came across with this really neat timeline on skepticalscience.com, and it's fascinating to see that as early as in the 1820s, a certain Mr. Fourier already described the connection between the atmosphere and the global warming. And mind you, we're talking about none other than Jean-Baptiste Joseph Fourier, the mathematician who also developed the Fourier series. And since I'm myself a mathematician, I can proudly say it's amazing how once again mathematicians knew what was up right from the start. Around 1870, the industrial age began. This point is in time still serves as a benchmark today, as seen in agreements like the Paris Agreement from 2015. I don't want to cover everything in this graphic, just a few details. For instance, in 1938, Guy Stewart Callender was the first who proves the evidence of global warming based on temperature measurements, linking it to the anthropogenic greenhouse effect. Or 1958, the Keeling curve, you may knew it, well, this is the one with the many peaks. Maybe you might know Keeling had a visiting professorship in Heidelberg in the late 60s. So he's connected with with Heidelberg. Yeah, in the mid-60s, there were initial warnings from the scientific community to policymakers about the climate crisis. And the last date on the timeline I would like to highlight was 1988. Because it wasn't until the 1980s that global warming and climate change garnered significant attention in media coverage. And this was partly due to the work of scientists like Sir James Hansen, who testified in front of the US Congress in 1988 about the mounting concerns regarding climate change. Since then, awareness of global warming and its potential consequences has continued to grow along with the media coverage of this issue. In this case, I highly recommend the brilliant book of Michael E. Mann, The New Climate Wars, and he's written everything down, what was up in the 80s and how the warnings of the scientists was overheard by the policymakers. One last date, it was 1988 that the IPCC was established by the nations organizations, the World Meteorological Organization and the United Nations Environment Programme. Now let's shift our attention to the topic of media coverage. It's somehow clear to every person that media are important for conveying and disseminating information. In my opinion, no one has expressed it as well and beautiful as a sociologist and system theorist Niklas Luhmann. And this quote is the opening line from his book, Reality of Mass Media. The first sentence, what we know about our society, indeed about the world in which we live, we know through the mass media. So basically it means we derive all information from media. It's certainly our everyday habit, but it's something we should also remind ourselves of from time to time. In the second sentence, it delves more precisely into what kind of information he needs. This applies not only to our understanding of society and history, but also to our understanding of nature. So not only history and social science, but also understanding of nature is shaped by mass media. In this context, the climate crisis, in the context of the climate crisis, this leads to two conclusions. Firstly, knowledge about the crisis can only be disseminated to society through mass media. And secondly, though Luhmann doesn't explicitly state it, it can be inferred between the lines that it is in the responsibility of the mass media to do so, if they consider themselves as part of the society and to wish to ensure the existence of a livable planet. Mass media, as understood by Luhmann, encompasses not only television or internet, but also radio, websites, magazines, books, music, movies, social media, and much more. Unfortunately, Luhmann passed away over 20 years ago, so we are left in the dark about his thoughts on the new phenomena like mass media, like social media. In particular, climate movement has experienced a tremendous rise through mass media, especially social media platforms. One question that could be asked here is whether Greta Thunberg would have been able to initiate such a significant turning point in the climate debate without Twitter or other similar platforms. In today's presentation, however, we'll focus on two mass media outlets, television on the one hand and the newspapers on the other hand. Although newspapers will be considered somewhat secondary compared to television. Nevertheless, there are also numerous studies about the climate crisis in newspapers, and I will point them out when appropriate. Probably not everyone is familiar with the public broadcasting system in Germany. Allow me to briefly explain it. The public broadcasting system in Germany comprises a range of non-commercial radio and television stations whose task is to contribute to public opinion formation and to provide citizens with access to information, education, and culture. The fragmentation of the public broadcasting system in Germany reflects the federal structure of the country. Germany consists of 16 federal states, each having a certain degree of autonomy in their own affairs, including cultural and media policies. When the public broadcasting system was established in Germany after World War II, it was consciously decided that it should not be controlled from a central authority. The experience of propaganda and media manipulation during the Nazi era contributed to the desire for decentralization and independence in the media landscape. Therefore, the responsibility for broadcasting was distributed among the individual federal states, giving rise to several regional public broadcasting institutions, as you can see on the map. These broadcasting institutions are independent of each other, but they cooperate in many areas, such as in the ARD, Arbeitsgemeinschaft der öffentlich-rechtlichen Rundfunkanstalten der Bundesrepublik Deutschland. Yes, that's the real name. It's very long. So the D stands for Bundesrepublik. Okay, at the national level, the first German television, das erste, and the second German television, ZDF, are part of the public broadcasting as well. They produce and broadcast a wide range of programs, including news, documentaries, talk shows, sports events, entertainment shows, and so on. Additionally, there's also Deutschlandradio, which offers nationwide radio programs. The financing of public broadcasting is primarily done through broadcasting fees paid by citizens. This ensures that institutions can operate independently of advising revenues and political or economic influences. And the system is supervised and monitored by a number of bodies, including the broadcasting councils for each institution, which consists of representatives from various social groups. There are also other cultural and specialized channels such as Dreisat or Arte, which have not been mentioned in detail here. And we also haven't taken into account private broadcasters such as Sat.1, RTL, and ProSieben, and so on. Every day, the main news Tagesschau takes place at 8 p.m. Furthermore, there are several programs distributed throughout the day, and around 10 p.m. it's a magazine show that provides a more in-depth analysis of the content. The Tagesschau is one of the oldest and most trusted news broadcasts with high viewership ratings. In 2022, the average audience reach of the Tagesschau was approximately 10.1 million viewers. It's often jokingly referred to the Tagesschau as a campfire of the nations, since many people gather around the televisions to watch a program. Let's take a look at the example how the Tagesschau behaved when it came to the release of the IPCC's 6th assessment report. The assessment report 6 consists of 3 parts. The working group 1 focuses on the physical science-based climate change. It assesses the current state of knowledge regarding the Earth climate system, including observations, climate models, and understanding of past and future climate change. This results of the first working group made it at the beginning of the evening news. The working group 2. This part examines the impacts, adaptations, and vulnerability associated with climate change. It assesses how climate change affects nature and human systems, including ecosystems, water resources, agriculture, human health, and socio-economic sectors. The results of the second working group made it as a brief news item to the end of the evening news just before the weather forecast. Working group 3 focuses on mitigation options to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and limit global warming. It assesses the technological, socio-economic, and policy measures that can be implemented to transition towards a low carbon and sustainable future. So it seems to be the most critical part, where it's explained what needs to change and how quickly in order to mitigate the most severe consequences of climate change. Surprisingly, the results of this working group don't even make it to the evening news. We have interviewed a few insiders to understand how this could be happen. From all the statements, it became evident that unfortunately the significance of the report has still not been fully understood, partially even today. For daily climate information, the Tagesschau is certainly not a good option. There are many important events happening worldwide that also have a high news value and need to be communicated to the public. However, the idea of having a daily climate program is worth considering. And for that, we look at the series vor acht, before 8, on the same channel. Before the Tagesschau, specifically the 20 minutes prior to it, there are 3 programs. Wissen vor acht, knowledge before 8, Wetter vor acht, weather before 8, and Wirtschaft vor acht, economy before 8, which are interrupted by short commercial breaks. The shows themselves are approximately 3 to 5 minutes long. Now we can draw the following conclusions on which our association is based. I will explain it visually. Take a look for yourselves. This would be a solution. Yeah, and there would be plenty of time available for commercials. Furthermore, commercials are, for public broadcasters, it's only an additional source of income, as the main revenue comes from the broadcasting fee. If a program were to be cancelled, Wirtschaft vor acht, economy before it would be a good candidate. Because in the Tagesschau at 9 AM, there's a segment dedicated to the stock markets. In the Mittagsmagazin, the midday magazine, there's also a segment dedicated to the stock market. At 3 PM, there's another stock market segment in the Tagesschau, and at 5 PM as well. Then you have the show Economy for 8, and later in the Tagesthemen, there's also a segment discussing the stock markets and disseminating economic news to reflect the day. So there's still plenty of opportunities to receive up-to-date information about economy throughout the day. Yeah, maybe you're now wondering what Klima vor acht is. Let's consider it from a short historical perspective. The idea of Klima vor acht is not new. Back in November 2019, 2 students started a petition titled Klima vor acht statt Börse vor acht, translated climate before 8 instead stock market before 8. This petition received approximately 26,000 signatures and was handed over to the director of the ARD, Tom Buro. He only expressed his gratitude and said, "Rest assured, we at the ARD also do a lot for the environment." This was the only answer. It was only 2 lines. During the first wave of the COVID-19 pandemic in April 2020, some activists from Grannies for Future, the other part of the For Future movement, wrote about 150 letters to the broadcasting councils, which are the supervisory boards of public broadcasting. These letters included the demand for a program like Klima vor acht. Out of these 150 letters, they received a response to only 4. And in June 2020, Extinction Berlin occupied the NDR and called for more climate reporting, including a program like Klima vor acht. Unfortunately, the activists from Extinction Berlin were also turned away. This prompted us, founding members, including Friederike Meyer, Daniel Kulms, Michael Flammer, and myself, to contribute something productive to the discussion. The argument from the broadcaster had always been that climate is a very complex topic and cannot be explained in 3 to 5 minutes. Apparently, this doesn't seem to be a problem for the economy. So we thought, if the ARD doesn't want to make the shows like Klima vor acht, then we want to make one ourselves and show how a program could look like and that it works. We budgeted 6 episodes with approximately €20,000 in early September and started crowdfunding. and we received the 20,000 euros for 6 episodes after 3.5 hours, right after starting the crowdfunding. And we saw at this time there was a tremendous potential in this idea. Klima for acht should not be just an educational program providing background information. In this show, we aim to report on the current events related to the climate crisis in the world, enriched with relevant information. It is important to us that it is easily to understand, scientifically sound, and aired at the best broadcasting time. Additionally, we'll follow an approach of constructive journalism. I come to that later. As Klima for acht, we see ourselves as an inspiration and motivation for the public broadcasting. It's important to us that this show exists, but we don't want to produce it ourselves. Rather, we aim to encourage the broadcasters to create such a program that the editorial control lies with the broadcasters. After producing the episodes, we launched our campaign in March 2021 with an open letter to Tamburo, just as the students had done before. With this letter, we gathered approximately 20,000 signatures, including many prominent signatures such as climate researcher Stefan Rahmsdorf and meteorologist Özden Terli. Our first episode was aired in April 2021 on a weekly basis. During this time, we had many discussions with journalists and broadcasters, including private broadcasters, the Austrian Public Broadcasting Service, local radio stations, and numerous journalists from regional programs and others. During the production of our episodes, we had to be a bit creative. Since we couldn't produce them in real time, we backdated the episodes to show what an episode could have looked like on that particular day. We distinguished between reporting episodes and background information episodes during the productions. And the topics of our 6th episode, as you can see, I will translate it for the non-German speaker. Morse, the first one, underestimated climate protectors. Second one is simplifying the energy transition. Third one is tipping points, no way back. The fourth is Green Planet thanks to CO2. It's a show about debunking climate myth. The fifth is scrapping for the climate, and the 6th episode is Our Earth's Twin. This episode covers the field of attribution research. In all our episodes, we view climate as a cross-cutting issue rather than specialized topic. And you can watch all the episodes on YouTube with English subtitles. And I'll give you an expression of the first episode. And I will try to switch off my cell phone.
Es ist neblig und geheimnisvoll. Das Moor ist ein sagenumwobener Ort der Mythen und Legenden und manchmal auch Schauplatz von unheimlichen Kriminalfällen. Doch Moore sind nicht nur wunderschön und unheimlich, Moore sind vor allem Klimaschützer. Und damit herzlich willkommen zu Klima vor acht. Nasse Moore erfüllen eine wichtige Aufgabe für ein gutes Klima. Sie speichern Kohlenstoff. Und zwar riesige Mengen davon, genauso wie man es eigentlich von Bäumen kennt. Doch Moore bedecken tatsächlich nur 3% der gesamten Landfläche der Erde, Wälder hingegen 30%. Also könnte man jetzt meinen, dass Bäume auch insgesamt mehr Kohlenstoff speichern. Doch das Gegenteil ist der Fall. Obwohl Wälder 10-mal mehr Fläche einnehmen, speichern Moore doppelt so viel Kohlenstoff wie die Biomasse aller Wälder der Erde zusammen. Mit diesem Wissen lohnt es sich genauer hinzusehen, warum ausgerechnet Moore so effektive Kohlenstoffspeicher sind. Moore sind Feuchtgebiete mit einem ständigen Wasserüberschuss. Tatsächlich bestehen sie fast zu 95% aus Wasser. Im nassen Moorboden siedeln sich dann Pflanzen an, die Kohlenstoff aufnehmen, um zu wachsen. Doch jetzt kommt's. Sterben diese Pflanzen ab, verrotten sie unter dem Wasser kaum. Denn der nasse Moorboden ist wie ein Schutzfilm und bremst die natürliche Zersetzung der Pflanzenreste durch den Sauerstoff aus. Aus den abgestorbenen Pflanzen bildet sich dann eine Masse, die einige aus der Blumenerde kennen: Torf. Und der macht tatsächlich den entscheidenden Unterschied bei der Speicherkapazität zwischen Mooren und Wäldern aus. Denn über Jahrtausende wird die Torfschicht immer dicker und dicker und kann Tonnen an Kohlenstoff speichern. Doch schon seit Jahrhunderten werden Moore massiv trockengelegt und zerstört. Früher wurde Torf abgebaut, um ihn als Heizmittel zu verbrennen. Und heute werden die trockenen Moorflächen vor allem für die Land- und Forstwirtschaft genutzt. Und eben als Zutat in unserer Blumenerde für unsere Topf- und Gartenpflanzen. Ursprünglich haben nasse Moore in Deutschland einmal die Fläche in der Größe von Sachsen eingenommen. Durch Eingriffe des Menschen ist jetzt nur noch ein Bruchteil der natürlichen Moore übrig. Und auch davon sind über 95% bereits trockengelegt. Und das hat Folgen. Wird ein Moor entwässert, geschieht das, was das Wasser zuvor verhindert hat. Der über tausende Jahre gespeicherte Kohlenstoff wird frei. Und aus Kohlenstoff und Sauerstoff wird CO2. Das Treibhausgas, das hauptverantwortlich für die Erderwärmung ist. Je tiefer entwässert wird, desto mehr Treibhausgase werden dauerhaft frei. So effektiv nasse Moore als Kohlenstoffspeicher sind, so schädlich sind sie, wenn sie entwässert sind. Über ein Drittel aller landwirtschaftlichen Treibhausgasemissionen gehen auf das Konto der entwässerten Feuchtgebiete. Deutschlandweit machen sie jährlich über 5% der Gesamtemissionen aus. Das ist mehr als der Anteil des innerdeutschen Flugverkehrs. Die Moore wieder zu vernässen, ist der einzige Weg, um zu verhindern, dass weiter ungehindert Treibhausgase ausgestoßen werden. Auf lange Sicht kommen auch moortypische Pflanzen zurück und Moore können wieder Kohlenstoff speichern. Doch um diese Flächen wieder zu vernässen, braucht es den politischen Willen und natürlich auch Anreize für die Landwirtschaft. Das Moorzentrum Greifswald erforscht daher maßgeblich eine rentable Alternative, die Paludikultur. Ein Beispiel dafür ist der Anbau von Rohrkolben für Rebdächer. Auf diese Weise können auch wieder vernässte Moorflächen landwirtschaftlich genutzt werden. Das alles ist aber nur möglich, wenn wirklich alle zusammenarbeiten: Wissenschaft, Politik und Landwirtschaft. Denn feuchte Moore sind zwar unheimlich, aber vor allem unheimlich wichtig für den Klimaschutz.
Okay, that was the first episode of Klima acht. And maybe you ask how the broadcasters react to our publication. And the private broadcaster RTL approached us and wanted to create a show with us called Klima Update, the climate update. And the show has been airing twice a week since June 2021, regularly at this primetime slot in RTL, that is shortly after 7 p.m. or which is a kind of before 8. And the channel is market leader during that time, and the concept was nominated for prestigious German television award, the Grimme Preis. RTL also stated that they have only positive experience with the development and broadcasting of such a format. On the other side, the ARD also invited us for discussions, including Christiane Strobel, Florian Hager, and Oliver Kör. They listened to us and assured us that they're already doing a lot for the environment and climate protection, which can be seen in their ongoing shows. Unfortunately, the discussions did not lead to any results, as to this day, there's no show like Klima acht or any other climate-related show. To learn more about the topic of media and climate crisis in Germany, you can also read our book that we published last year, specifically written for media professionals and journalists. Unfortunately, this book is only available in German. However, we were able to enlist many renowned authors for this anthology, and the foreword was written by Mojib Latif, a meteorologist and the president of the German Club of Rome. What we repeatedly heard in our discussions with the broadcasters is that one of the reasons why more is not being done is because we already had a lot of climate reporting. As a mathematician, I always wondered what exactly this a lot means. So we decided to do a count. We approached this in two different ways. Firstly, we examined the program schedule, which can be found in the program guide on the internet. I'll first discuss this approach and then I will talk about the second approach, which involved watching live broadcasts. We conducted a web scraping on the program guide, which is available for the past years on public broadcasting websites. This resulted in gathering over 2 million shows since 2016 across 21 channels that we scraped. The majority of these shows are from local broadcasters such as WDR or RBB. However, we also included specialty channels like Dreisat or Arte. We performed a quantitative analysis and searched for the string climate. This is a typical program page. You can see the clear division into title, channel, content, and detailed information. On the right, we have the dates and the duration of the show. In this example, we have found 4 instances of the word Klima, but the show only is counted once. Sometimes these pages provide limited information, and it's also possible that Klima not directly related to Klimawandel, climate change. It could be used in phrases like Familienklima or Wirtschaftsklima. False positives hits naturally occur as a result of this process. As you can see in this word cloud, there are very few numbers. We disregard these false positive hits when analyzing the data for the public broadcasting sector. It would be interesting to observe the evolution in terms over time. The number of hits for Klimakrise increases over the years, indicating a shift in discourse. However, we not yet conducted a detailed analysis of this aspect. And here, as you can see, the curve of the results. We have plotted a 7-day average of the frequencies of climate-related broadcasts here. As you can see, the curve is relatively flat with a slight increase starting from 2019. This is an initial indication of the impact of rise for future. Additionally, we observe some peaks in the curve which can be attributed to specific events. The peaks in the curves correspond to the annual World Climate Conferences. The largest spike occurred during the global climate strike in 2019. In the same week, the German government also adopted the climate package, as you can remember. Additionally, we have marked the heat wave of 2018 as it was not initially attributed to climate change until August of this year. On August of the same year, Swedish students who have since gained worldwide recognition started a school strike for climate. Furthermore, there was an RD theme week titled Zukunft und Klima, Future and Climate at the end of 2021. This theme week led to a relatively minor spike compared to the World Climate Conferences. To better assess this curve, we also compared it to the term Wirtschaft, economy. Here you can see that the occurrence of Wirtschaft in the program using the same analysis method is significantly more frequent. In other words, economic topics appear more often in the program as climate-related topics. And with the term Corona clearly shows that the broadcasting sector reacted well, quickly, and with a lot of information offerings at the beginning of the health crisis. This means that in principle, it is capable of responding appropriately to crisis. To shed some light on the public sentiment, we also included third-party data from the Forschungsgruppe Wahlen. Every 2 weeks, the Forschungsgruppe Wahlen conducts a representative survey in which they ask people about the 2 most important issues in Germany. The open-ended responses are categorized into topics such as education, pensions, social inequality, and, as we can see, coronavirus or the field of energy supply and climate. When we combine this data with our program analysis, we see the following. In the case of coronavirus, the curves are almost identical at the beginning of the crisis. The decline in the curve corresponds to the decrease in coverage in the program. In case of the climate, the results are somewhat different. While we see the corresponding peak in 2019, there haven't been a significant change in the program around that time. In 2021, the curve starts to rise again, but not significant changes in the program are observed. When overlying both statements from the Forschungsgruppe Wahlen, as shown by the dashed line, an interesting effect can be observed. At the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis, the perception of climate as a problem rapidly decreases. This effect is referred to as crowding out in communication science, indicates that one crisis overshadows the other. As the perception of COVID-19 crisis starts to weaken, we also a resurgence of the climate issue. It's also important to note that no definite conclusion can be drawn about whether the program follows the problem perception or vice versa. When we presented these results to RDSWR, they told us that is all nice and well, but they often have people coming with various statistics trying to prove something. They emphasizes that what matters is what broadcasted, not what is in the program schedule. So we came up with a new idea, and we developed a program that captures the live stream of the three channels, Das Erste, ZDF, and WDR, and separated the audio track, processed then the audio track through a speech-to-text algorithm and divided it into blocks of 1 minute durations. This allows us to see exactly what was spoken in the program on each channel down to the minute. The speech-to-text algorithm is quite accurate with only a few exceptions. And if we focus primarily on non-fictional shows, especially those who are hosted by professional speakers, it poses no problem. We initiated the project in July 2021 for all the three channels, and we collected approximately 2.8 million minutes, or around 214 million words in total. Once again, it's a qualitative analysis, and one strength of the program is also that we can detect the occurrence of the word Klima in the program, allowing communication researchers to quantitatively examine the content and additionally assess the images, the framing, the storytelling, and more related things to this topic. And we also, in this study, conducted a test with representative samples alongside with some students to verify whether the presence of the word Klima indeed indicates a reference to the meteorological climate, rather than other contexts such as economic climate. The recall rate was about 89% and the precision rate was about 94%. Here you can see the results of the transcription based on the audio track. And we summed up the climate minute for each week and categorized them with by the broadcasters. The big peak on the left was the 2021 federal election. And this flattening thing in November, that was the World Climate Conference. And then after that, the curve is very flattened, and the topic declined again in the spring of the following year. And in September, it would be resurfaced in early September when the compromise around Lützerath was reached. The remaining period until today has not been examined from a communication science perspective, but the data is available and will be published soon. On the other hand, we compared some terms with each other and summed up the results for each broadcaster. As here you can see, it's very impressive, once again, how quickly broadcasters respond to the war in the Ukraine, provided coverage during the whole week when the war started. As you can see, only 1.8% of the whole broadcasting time is about climate topic. Whether it's a significant amount or not cannot be determined scientifically. It's a matter of society to discuss it. One unfortunate aspect is that we only have data available from mid-2021. Luckily, we've discovered that Tagesschau has an archive, which goes back to 2007. And we use the algorithm again with this archive. And you can see it's only really related to the World Climate Conferences when you have peaks. And another thing is you get this arc here in 2019, which I like to refer to as a greater arc. We publish everything in Media Perspektiven with the title Klimawandel im öffentlich-rechtlichen Fernsehen, and it is available on the internet. There are also numerous studies on the topic of climate change in newspapers. Here's one institution that collects the data worldwide, the Media and Climate Change Observatory, MECO, at the University of Colorado. And the University of Hamburg also collects relevant statistics for Germany through its online media monitoring. Another aspect which I want to mention is the framing, which we can see in some newspapers, headlines that are problematic. I will run to it because I'm a bit late. And here you can see who's paying for saving the world. It's a problematic aspect. This one from Der Spiegel, higher housing cost traps of climate protection. What awaits tenants and property owners? The latest edition of the Spiegel, you can see Operation Heat Pump, expensive and controversial, green enthusiasm leading to chaos. Often climate protection is portrayed as radical rather than pragmatic. And it emphasizes that the population no longer wants more climate protection. The Western way of life is portrayed as the only normality without alternatives. Then climate protection is portrayed as special interest. Daniel Wiesewicz is a famous journalist, and he's in the climate bubble, very active. And I translated his tweet. It was in German. And then, as you can see, the latest media things, actions of climate movements are portrayed negatively. It's spoken of as change and warming. The true culprits are not being obscured. There's a case of greenwashing. It's a very big problem at media too. Often you only hear about CO2 and not about greenhouse gases. And methane and nitrous oxide are much more potent greenhouse gases than carbon dioxide. And the latest one, ideas that challenge the growth mindset are not communicated. This was a tweet by Julia Steinberger last week, and when she went to the degrowth conference, and it took very little coverage at press, but it was a big conference with hundreds of people and talking about the future of economics and degrowth. So let me skip this slide. And I don't want to talk about false balance. Everyone knew the problem of false balance. There's a scientist on the one side and a normal guy on the other side, and the scientist worked many years in a field, and the other guy just sitting on a sofa and came to another conclusion, so just by watching TV or something else. It's a big problem. And what can be done by journalism? First thing is the constructive journalism. This is an approach that goes beyond traditional reporting by not only focusing on what, when, who, how, where, and why, but also asking the question, what then? It aims to provide a constructive touch by offering solutions and alternatives rather than leaving people in fear and despair. The goal is to inspire and motivate audience, providing them with hope and a way forward. Constructive journalism seeks to engage with the public and empower them to take action, fostering a sense of agency and impact. It encourages a more balanced and constructive narrative that goes beyond highlighting problems to also highlighting potential solutions. And last but not least, what can be done better? The Guardian shows it. The Guardian's environmental pledge of 2019, this pledge presents a significant commitment by the newspaper to address the pressing issue of climate change. Firstly, the Guardian pledged to provide comprehensive reporting on environmental issues, ensuring accuracy and staying true to the scientific consensus on climate change. Their goal is to keep readers informed about the latest developments and impacts of climate change in our planet. Secondly, the newspaper vowed to use a clear and precise language in their reporting, avoiding terms that downplay the severity of the climate crisis. They aim to convey the urgency and seriousness of the situation, ensuring that readers fully grasp the magnitude of the problem we face. Furthermore, the vibrant nature should not longer be described in technical terms. Instead of using biodiversity, we should use wildlife. Instead of fish stocks, we could use school of fish, to give 2 examples. Additionally, The Guardian committed to divesting its fund from fossil fuel companies, aligning their financial practices with their environmental goals. Furthermore, the newspaper pledged to advocate for policies and action that address climate change and promote sustainability. In summary, The Guardian's environmental pledge is a testament to the commitment to responsible journalism and environmental stewardship. Through their reporting, choice of language, divestment effort, and advocacy, they aim to raise awareness, drive action, contribute to the goal efforts to combat climate change. There are many more ideas and proposals from scientists around the world on how we can rethink the problem of media and climate crisis, whether it's in the context of transformative journalism or through initiatives like the Climate Pledge. The media in Germany also has a long way to go to free itself from its climate crisis itself. I hope I was able to provide a small insight today into the magnitude of the problem, particularly the realm of media. We also need to change our culture of debate. To conclude with the wonderful words of journalism professor Thorsten Schäfer, the debate lacks empathy, sensuality, hope, joy, poetry, imagination, as well as culture, beauty and aesthetics, motives for fulfilling life. Thank you very much.